So good evening, everyone.
Oh, wow.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the fifth day of the workshop, Love and Attachment. Before we start the proceedings, let's have a moment's silence while we contemplate on the manifestation of love.
This is
Bangalore from the
international seminar চালাচ্ছেন টাইম আরম্ভ হয়ে গেছে
Sorry about that, we had a small internet problem. So, a warm welcome to you all for the fifth day, and it gives me a great deal of pleasure to introduce you to the facilitator for tonight's session, Dr. Soumitra Basu. He's a consultant psychiatrist who practices at Puducherry. I think many of you will know him already, but particularly in his native city, Calcutta. He works with consciousness paradigms of health and psychology. As many of you will know, he is very active in workshops covering personal growth and is the founder editor of NAMAH, the Journal of Integral Health. He is the author of a book called Integral Health. Now, Dr. Basu is deeply interested in the interplay of Aurovindonian metaphysics and mental health. He has recently developed a module of consciousness-based psychology, CBP, and along with Michael Miovich from the USA, has authored a book on CBP, which I understand is still at the press, I'm not sure, but is it, that looks at psychopathology and counselling from an entirely new perspective, arising from the experimental teachings of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. So this evening, Dr. Soumitra Basu is going to talk about the rungs of love. Love may be one, but it has its gradations. Like all his discourses, this session will surely be a fascinating experience. So over to you, Dr. Basu, and everyone enjoy the session.
Thank you, James. So, I am audible?
Yes?
This is okay. This sound is okay. So, we will talk today about the rungs of love, and I was just going over the records of or the case summaries of the talks that had been already held, which was quite fascinating, and we take off from there. And but as I am a clinician, so my talk also be inclusive of my clinical experiences based on that. And in the beginning, I would start by just reminding of Chaldean legend which the mother used to love, and she used to speak about it often. It's a legend that is older than the Egyptian legend, and it has a psychological truth in it. And the legend was like this, that in the beginning, when the manifestation had to take place, certain elements were thrown into the manifestation and they were told to develop themselves. And they were told to develop infinitely, or the potentialities they have to develop in an infinite way. And all the things that were first thrown into the manifestation were things like light, like love, like knowledge, like life. And because they were told to develop ad infinitum, develop as much as possible, in as many ways as possible, so one of the possibilities also was to develop into their opposites. For example, as a doctor, I can also become a corrupt doctor. I can also become a bad doctor. So like that. So all these potentialities, they were told to manifest, and they developed their opposites because they were given no limit. You can develop as in what way you can develop. So develop infinitely. And when the opposites were developed, then what happened? Then light became darkness, knowledge became ignorance, love became hatred, life became death. So all the opposites were produced, and all these opposite values, all these opposite things, if we take it forward in accordance to what Sri Aurobindo has described how the manifestation took place, they all sank into the inconscious. They all sank into the inconscious. It's only when all the opposites came and there was a chaos, then the second order of forces were commissioned. The second order of forces were the corrective forces. The forces that would correct things, bring back harmony. Because when all the opposite things developed, then there was disharmony. And so then you have to have harmony, and you have to have the opposite corrective forces. And these corrective forces were named in various ways, in various traditions. You know, we call them gods, we call them so many other things also. Anyway, we are not concerned about that. We are concerned about the fact that the manifestation from its beginning started with the opposites of the values that were supposed to flower. And that was a challenge, that was a very challenge, because all these opposite values sank into the inconscious. And from the inconscious now, the evolution is going to start. The evolution of consciousness is going to start from where? From the inconscious. And the inconscious has got all the opposite things. So just imagine what a chaos it is. So we are beginning from the chaos. We are beginning from a chaos. It's very interesting. We are beginning from a chaos. But why did we begin? You see, the chaos was there. There was no obligation that evolution had to start from that chaos. There was no obligation, but the obligation was there because it was the divine decree. There was the divine decree also that came from above, that evolution has to take place. And so evolution started happening from that mud and slime of the inconscience. And when that mud and slime of the inconscience started evolving, it started growing, so it needed a scaffolding. It needed a scaffolding around which it will grow. And that scaffolding came to be known as the ego. Is that scaffolding around which all this mud, all this what we call the opposite values, they came and clustered, that when he started rising up, and that scaffolding that was holding it was the ego. And then the ego is made up from actually the material from all these things. Ego is not something that has dropped into the inconscience from the sky. So ego is made up from all these things. And we see the being, therefore the being starts from the inconscience, which is very interesting. You see, in our Indian tradition it is said that we are the son of the immortality, children of immortality, Amritasya Putra, which is true, which is basically true because unless the decree was not there that the evolution has to start, and the decree came from the superconscious, then evolution would not have started. Therefore, we are rightfully and basically children of the superconscious. But practically, the inconscience is the starting point, and that's why in the Semitic traditions, where often it is said that man is a sinner, which is practically true. Not fundamentally true, but it is practically true that man is a sinner. Now, so what happens? So what is happening? That when man is rising, when the evolution is progressing and the human being is formed and it is rising up, it is bringing into it all the impurities from the inconscience, and that is why when we are evaluating a human phenomenon, we see that it is not free from the opposite values. Always the opposite values are always there. So always, if life is there, there will always be death. If pain is there, there will always be. If the pain is always there, when there is supposed to be only joy. If love is there, hatred is always there, because all these things have come from the inconscience. So you cannot just rub them off. It is a part of reality that the opposite things have come. So from the very beginning, all these things that are the opposite of the values that are to manifest, that was there from the very beginning. But at the same time, the superconscious was also exerting its influence. If you can say that if all the negative things are coming from the inconscious, how do we have love? We would have only hatred. But the evolution is a very complicated process, the evolution of consciousness. At every point, there are two forces that are acting. That is the push from below. That is the push from below, and from the laterally, there are the planes of the what we call the typal planes, the non-evolutionary planes, the planes of love, light, all knowledge, all these planes are also there, and they are also contributing. So at every step in the evolution, all the positive things are coming from the lateral planes which are there in the cosmic consciousness, and at the same time from the evolution below, all the what we call the negative things are also coming up. So what we are is actually we are a mix-up of the positive and negative things, and that's why love and hatred are in the outer personality. They are somehow together, they are remaining together, and they are linked with the ego. And the problem is that they are all linked with the ego. And if you have to go beyond the negative attributes of all the things, not only love but also all the other things, then you have to work. You have to work upon yourself. You have to work so that you can get free from the ego. You have to go into a deeper consciousness, or you have to go into higher consciousness. So that is the need for a sadhana. That is the need for our spiritual development. Now, because from the very beginning, love was always in the outer personality, intertwined with his opposite hatred. So we see that so much suffering, so much cruelty has occurred in the sake of love. In the name of love, so many things have happened. I will just read out because Sri Aurobindo's words carry a force which our otherwise when we talk we don't carry that force, to show how Sri Aurobindo viewed this love at the outer level. When he is describing in Love and Death, the godhead, the vital godhead of love, Ruru, Madan is telling to Ruru that mortal I am he. This is the god of love, the Cupid or the Madan. He is telling to Ruru that mortal I am he. I am that Madan who informs the stars with luster, and on life's white canvas fill pictures of light and shade, of joy and tears, make ordinary moments wonderful, and common speech a charm, knit life to life. You see, we are talking about attachment, knit life to life. So that's the attachment comes there, with interfusions of opposing souls, and sudden meetings, and slow sorceries. And then it goes on, and at the end he says, these are my gifts for which men praise me. These my glories come, but fiercer shafts I can, wild storms blown down, shaking fixed minds and melting marble natures. I can melt marble natures. Tears and dumb bitterness, and pain unpitied, racket thirsting jealousy, and kind hearts made stone, and in undisciplined huge souls I saw dire vengeance and impossible cruelties. It's not, I will just tell you that as a practicing psychiatrist, I have seen to the extent where this can go. We are all acquainted with the with the fact that we read in newspapers and all stories of how people falling in love take revenge. But it can go to some extreme point where that revenge can be not only a revenge for the sake of revenge, but it can be something else. It can be perversion par excellence. It can be perversion par excellence. It can be what you call, it can be something so macabre, so sinister, we can't imagine. It can go there. And in spite of that, I would tell you, that who is more important, hatred or love? Still I would say that it is love that is more important. Love is more important than hatred. Though Madan is telling that I can love and I can also have this hatred, this dire vengeance and this racket thirsting jealousy, but still the balance is tilted. The balance is tilted, and love still gets an upper hand. I will tell you why it is interesting. For me, I understand it in a different way. For I have seen schizophrenic patients. We all see, those of you who do counseling here and would know the fact that many schizophrenic patients, quite many of them, have great fascination towards the one-sided love. They love in fantasy. And the object of their love, suppose a schizophrenic patient, he loves someone, the other person doesn't know that he is being loved by this. But this person who is a schizophrenic, throughout his life, he goes on loving, and that love can take what you call very disturbing proportions. One can, and that person, the other person doesn't know at all. He is taken, he is surprised that why I am suffering like this, or why is trying to come behind me. He doesn't know that that person actually is loving very intensely, and that love is totally in fantasy. And why I am telling this is interesting, that hatred with medicines, we can do something with the hatred. A person who has great hatred, who has great anger, with medicines we can quench that anger. With medicines we can cure that hatred. But with no medicine, till now, we can cure that love in fantasy, which the schizophrenic patients have. So you see that love is so strong. We have tried it. I have tried it for 40 years. I have tried. I have failed. Everybody fails. Nobody of us has succeeded. None of us has succeeded. With all our modern medicines, we have always failed. It's always the hatred we can do. With aggression, we can do something. We can quench aggression. But that love in fantasy, we have not been able to do anything. And then that can become very macabre. I will tell you, that can become very macabre. If it is invested with delusion, that love, that someone told me in the jail, I went to see a person who was in a murder charge, and he was very happy that he would not be released from jail. Why? Because he told that I didn't take any risk. I hacked my wife 63 times. Why? Because I loved her so much. And all the village people were trying to take advantage of her, to save her dignity, to save her honor. I didn't take any risk. And because of my great love for her, I hacked 63 times so that there's no chance of her to be alive. You see, that kind of extreme perversion, that where love became perverted to that extreme extent. So you see that how difficult it is, how difficult that can become. That this is the extent where that love can go, and then how you can deal with this love. Very, very difficult in the outer personality, in the outer being, which is very difficult. But still, we have tried. Humanity has tried to deal with love in some way or the other. It has tried to sublimate love. It has tried to romanticize love. It has tried to what you call glorify love. All these things were not there before. It came gradually in stages in human history. All these things gradually came in stages. So people learned. So we are still talking about the outer being. I'm not talking about the spiritual perspective of love with which we have been, which we have focused for the last 3 days. I'm not talking about that. Even in outer life, love, people have tried to what you call make something out of love so that it doesn't fall into what you call disastrous hands. So they have tried to modify it, they have tried to glorify it. You can see that, and in that glorification there was that anguish, and that anguish was taken to great levels. You know about this Cleopatra, that when Mark Antony committed suicide, that was her great love, Antony, and then when she knew that Octavius would take her, then she had no other option, and then she didn't take any risk, so that and then she took her life. But while you see when Shakespeare's, if you have read Shakespeare, then at that end, at the time when she is departing, she is telling, I have immortal yearnings, I have immortal yearnings, which means I want immortal love. I want love to be immortal. That's what she is meaning. And then we have here Chitrangada. We have here in India, we have Chitrangada, where she knew that Arjun had to go away. She knew that Arjun had to go away because Arjun was committed to greater deeds than that human love, and she had to live. She must leave her, but still she has to love, and there is no other option but to love, and she accepts that love with dignity. You see there again with Sri Aurobindo, how beautifully he has written. Chitrangada is telling Arjun, the impulse of thy mighty life will come upon thee like a wind and drive thee forth to toil and battle and disastrous deeds. Means you have to go to battle. And all the giant anguish that preserves our world. So you have to go and serve that giant anguish that preserves the world. You have to do something for that. Thou as resistlessly was born to these things as the leopards live to strength and beauty and fierceness, as resistlessly as women are to love, even though they know pain for the end, yet knowing still must love. So yet knowing one has to go on loving. So that was Chitrangada's contention, but Sri Aurobindo has portrayed so beautifully. And so you see that how human being has tried to glorify love, had to deal with love, even in the outer sphere. We are talking about the spiritual sphere that will come afterwards. But even before going to the spiritual sphere, human being has tried to work with love. And very interesting, Sri Aurobindo has said that there are 4 great events in history. And these 4 great events in history, from the consciousness perspective, he is not talking from the bland historical perspective. From the consciousness perspective, he told that there are 4 great events. One was the siege of Troy. The second was the crucifixion of Christ. The third was Vrindavanization of Krishna. And the fourth was the Kalakai at Kurukshetra. And you see, all 4 are linked with love. Something or other love is there. So the first is talking about the siege of Troy, which created Hellas. So it created the Hellenic civilization, which not only gave democracy, it gave political theories, it gave philosophy, but it also eulogized romance. That was very important in the Western world. It eulogized romance. So when in Iliad opens, on the 10th year of the war of Troy, Troy has become devastated, and Helen is there, is going to watch the duet between her present husband and her previous husband. But nobody tells that because she is so unlucky that because of her, Troy has been destroyed. But people tell, she is so beautiful, but for her, this would not have happened. Of course, this had to happen because of her great beauty, because of her great love. So you see that love got a different kind of denouement in that, and in that siege of Troy, and that we have been carried for ages and ages. That has now been carried in our literature, in our arts, in our all our thoughts. We have carried them. And then the second is a different kind of love again, the crucifixion of Christ. It was universal love. And universal love was very difficult. So why Sri Aurobindo included crucifixion of Christ? Because universal love, people would not understand. People would not understanding individual love of human beings of one another. But universal love, loving in an universal consciousness, people would not understand unless they could show that universal love is something which includes in its paradigm, it includes the greatest suffering that can be possible, and that was that crucifixion. So it includes the greatest suffering that can be possible. That is included. Otherwise, you cannot love. You cannot love. With that suffering, you can spread your consciousness to have that universal love. And we know that when he was crucified, at that moment, for one moment, there was he had absorbed the suffering of the universe in his consciousness. So, and then the third, you will see Vrindavanization of Krishna. Again, is going to a different thing than what we had been harping on, or what you have been touching, I think, in the last 3 days, where that is the love of the devotional love. Because Sri Aurobindo said that before the Vrindavan's episode with Krishna, there was meditation and worship, but there was no devotion with the inner Godhead, with our Ishta Devata. So, and you see, then again there is a change also, that God is not only present in an impersonal way, He is present also in a personal way. You see, God has an impersonal force, is all right, but you cannot love something impersonal. As Taylor Tishade said, that you cannot love an anonymous figure. Something anonymous, it is very difficult to love. But once you also, if God is also present in another point, in a personal point, as a Krishna, as a Christ, as a Kali inside, then you can have a relation with that. And that's why that personal God is also important. That Ishta Devata is also important. And the Kolokai of Kurukshetra, again, totally different, what you call a paradigm is being introduced. But their love is there together with knowledge and works. Love is there together with knowledge and works, showing that Satchidananda, when it manifests, if it manifests in the Sat aspect or the existential aspect, it manifests with the executive aspect of the consciousness force or Chit Shakti. It has a value aspect also, and that value aspect is Ananda, and Ananda is expressed in delight and love. Ananda is expressed as spontaneous delight and love. So you see this love in this what Sri Aurobindo said, that the four great events in history, all of them have love in some way or the other. That element of love is present in them. So this is how that we are trying to see that in every way love is being handled, love is being people are trying to understand love, people are trying to modify love, people are trying to develop love into its better and better aspects. Might be they are not concerned with spirituality, but they can sublimate love. In the outer world, you don't expect that everybody will become very spiritual and start spiritual quest with love. But then what you can expect is that there will be a sense of balance between ethics and aesthetics, a sense of balance between ethics and aesthetics when we are concerned with love. You have to have a balance of ethics and aesthetics, and with that you can sublimate love into very different forms which are higher than your pure what you call the rustic and the raw aspects of human attachments or human relations. You can do that, and that has always been done. That has always been done. Only today we have reached a point. Today, of course, we have reached a point where all the things that have so far held our society is proving inadequate for a different reason. You see, so long ethics, the balance between ethics and aesthetics, religion, they were still holding it. So that love in the outer world, that was somehow it was controlled. But today it is not being controlled. We are seeing enormous disproportionate things that are happening. This is because we have come to a point where the evolution has now to go to a different stage. Until it goes to a different stage, you see, then we are now facing different kinds of problems which was never there before. I will just tell you two or three clinical problems. For example, I have been approached by, I think, 5 or 6 very educated and illumined girls, young girls, I would say youngsters in their 20s and 30s. They have asked me, "Doctor, is it not possible to love more than one person with the same passion and have the same attachment? Why is it not possible?" Why I have to be hooked with one person? Why can I not have the same amount of passion and love for more than one person? A very difficult question. It's a difficult question. Of course, I have answered them. I explained to them that if you see metaphysically it is possible, because if I say that the one becomes the many and each unit of the many reflects the one, then this is possible. Then from the psychological viewpoint also this is possible, because the vital plane of consciousness is actually polygamous, where many forces come from many different sides and impinge on that. So we had actually polygamy before, nobody minded that because that was a custom. Today we have taken a different custom, that is a different matter, that 1:1 relation, but psychologically it is not 1:1, many different forces come and impinge. But if you want to have what you call a one-pointed passionate love to more than one person, outwardly it is difficult, practically it is difficult. It is difficult because our outer being is modulated by the ego, and the ego is biased because the ego is made up from our three components, from mind, life and body. It is made up from these three components, and therefore the ego is very biased, and because the ego is very biased, you would not be able to do anything. You will fall into a soup. You will not be able to balance all your relationships in the same way as you think that you can do it. You can do it, you cannot, and the human nature contains mud, so that the mud can come up and can spoil everything. So very difficult. What you are saying is very difficult. So this is a type of thing. Then another thing, because I am accosted every day and I understand this in a different way. Every day I have to see people with same-sex love, people with homosexuality and lesbianism, and I have to counsel them. You see, as a doctor, I can't tell them that I will not see you. I have to see them, but because they come to me not for other things, but for their existential problems. And what I feel is that taking cue from what Mother has taught us, that the perfect harmony between the principle of masculinity and the principle of femininity has not been achieved in the human evolution. You see, all of us have a masculine component and all of us have a feminine component, all of us. And this component of masculinity, this component of femininity, they have to come together in a harmonize. You see that Ardhanarishwar is a perfect harmony. So that Ardhanarishwar. Now, in evolution, we have to go to that stage. Until in consciousness, we have not gone to that stage where there is a perfect harmony between these two components. Nature will try to do experiments, different type of experiments, and experiments which we are thinking that why people have become so perverted, why people have become so deviant in behavior. But the main thing is that nature is actually wanting that these two things should come together. You see that day before, some lesbian couple came and asked me that, doctor, if a single woman can adopt a baby, why as a lesbian couple we will not be allowed to adopt a baby? Can we not have love and attachment to that baby? Are we incapable of doing that? Why we should not have that? But I told them, of course, the day will come when you can adopt a baby, but not because you will go and fight with your rights, no? Because the gay people, they fight with their rights. They are very much conscious of their rights, not because of that, but because the time is going to come when a human being will be born without the usual process of procreation that goes on now. That usual process of sexual procreation which is going on now will be replaced, and by a different way a child will be born. And we see that the beginning has been made when this sheep called Dolly, who was named Dolly, was cloned from the somatic cell, not from the sexual cells. And with the artificial test tube babies and all these things, the world is actually going to a next stage where you don't need the previous way of reproduction to have a child. So because I said that because of that, maybe not in your generation, but people of your next generation, they will, of course, they will have it. It's not like that. You have the right. If you want to love and you want to have an attachment, of course you can have, and it will come in a different way. So all these things are very interesting. But we see from a very different way, then these things are evolving in a way that we are forced to progress in evolution to a point where we transcend all our present barriers and we go to something new, something entirely new. As we say that the old ethics, the old laws, the old customs. They are unable now to check all these things, because in evolution we have reached a stalemate, and unless we go a step ahead, we will not be able to cross over all these problems. Now, the interesting thing is that of course you will tell that because this love has got this element of hatred, love has got this element of all these negative things. Something has to be done to get access to the purity of love, which is there, which people in great spiritual people, great mystics, great seers, great rishis, they've experienced. How do you go about that? So one way that was in our Indian tradition, one way was found how to go about it was to work on the heart chakra. Now that was very interesting, because the heart chakra, what it does, when you work on the heart chakra, what it does, what does the heart chakra does? You see, it was done, the heart chakra is very necessary to purify love, and that was developed. The heart chakra was developed in a way to purify love, so that we can have an experience of true love. So that was in our Indian tradition, that was done. So what the heart chakra was there, what it was doing, heart chakra basically it does, it frees the love is freed from the attachments to the physical, vital, mental and the ego. So because our human love actually is self-love. Our human love is self-love. You know, all of our love is self-love. We love only ourselves. We understand that in patients who suffer from depression and who go to commit suicide, at that time they only think about themselves. They never think of their children and their loved ones. They only love themselves and they think about themselves only. That's why mother said, who is depressed? It is the ego that is depressed. She said that. So the task of the heart chakra is to free the attachments of love from the moorings it has, from the hooks it has in the physical, vital, mental and the ego, and connect it with the universal love. It was a great thing. It was a very great thing, and it's the great people who have come to us, the great people who have automatically, even without not having the knowledge of heart chakra, automatically actually this was the process that was followed, that one got connected by transcending the ego, one got connected with the universal love. And that is how universal love has been propagated in all the great traditions, whether it is Christianity, whether it is Sufism, whether it is the Baul tradition in India, all the devotional traditions, it has always been like that, that you disconnect from the ego and connect with the universal love. Now here, that is something else again mother has given, which is totally new. She has now something, mother and Sri Aurobindo have given something totally new in this perspective of love. What was it? That they have described that behind the heart chakra, that is a fourth dimensional principle. There's a fourth dimensional principle, there's a psychic being, which is a projection of the Jivatma. And because it is a projection of the Jivatma, and the Jivatma has come from where? It has come from the Supreme. You see, the overmind consciousness, where the one started to become many. The one started to become many. You see, that one will become many, that was programmed in the supermind. It started to become many in the overmind, and then from there the Jivatma was issued, and this Jivatma which is there, which is our presiding central principle, it sends a projection to support every individual, and that projection Sri Aurobindo called the psychic being, Antaratta, or the Chaitya Purush. And because, you see, the interesting point is, because it has come from above, it does not contain the stain of imperfection, because when you are working with the heart chakra, you are working with the love that has come from below, from the inconscious, and that because it has come from the inconscious, it is tied up with all the opposite things of love, from which it has to be freed. But the psychic being carries love that is pure, spontaneous, and that has come directly from above. So there is no question of any impurity. That is, it is totally stainless. It is totally stainless. And if you can go to the psychic being, what happens? If you can have an experience of the psychic being, then you need not trouble to concentrate on the heart chakra, because the work of the heart chakra will automatically be done. Because once you go to have an experience of the psychic being, and in Mother and Sri Aurobindo's system, that the psychic being has to come forward. It has to come forward to replace the ego as the master of our being, as the leader of our being. And while it does so, it actually also does all the work that the heart chakra does. So automatically that work will be done. You don't have to concentrate separately on that. You can concentrate on the psychic being. So this is a very interesting phenomenon, and this is a very important grace that has been given to us by the mother. We must remember that we must take advantage of this force, because the mother's force at present directly acts on the psychic being. This is the one reason why in mother and Shivam the system we don't have initiation. If every spiritual tradition in India, religious group of India, they have an initiation, a diksha. A diksha is there, an initiation ceremony is there. We don't have in our system, because the mother's force directly acts on the psychic being. So if you are open to it, you are receptive to it. But remember, it is in the fourth dimension. I think last time we had a number of exercises we did for that. When I always tell that when you concentrate, when you close your eyes and concentrate and go deep within, mostly what we do is we end up at the last point of the space which contains all our organs, and that is the third dimension. So beyond it is the fourth dimension. No? So you must remember that when you are concentrating, when you have closed your eyes and concentrated, and you are going deep, deep, deep within, then you have to go behind, and not only behind the space which contains all your organs. Remember, behind the space which contains all your organs, you have to go still behind it, as if in high space, where from one rocket to another rocket, or one spaceship to another spaceship, if an astronaut goes, he has to swim in the space. So like that, you have to cross a cosmic consciousness, and what you call a gap of cosmic consciousness which is there between the fourth dimension and your being. You have to go there to the psychic being. That means it is detached automatically from everything. You see, we speak of detachment. When you go to the true psychic being, that is actually totally detached, because it is in the fourth dimension. It is not an extension of yourself backwards. Remember, it is not an extension yourself backwards. It is there behind everything. So it is deep behind, as if you have to cross something, across a space to go to it. So when you remember, when you concentrate on the psychic being as a fourth dimensional principle, then automatically when it comes forward, it will bring its light, its love, its purity, and then you see that changes will start happening in us. That will be, of course, the outer being is full of disharmony, and the psychic being, when it comes forward as a leader, it will lead to a fusion of the inner being and the outer beings. I didn't talk about the inner being. It will become very complicated, but we have an inner being behind the outer being, and behind the inner being is the psychic being. So they fuse together, and then there will be a greater harmony in us, and with a greater harmony only, you can expect to have a flowering of love. You see, without a harmony in your system, you don't expect that you can be capable of love, to love. And then then we remember when we said that the mother said that we don't know to love, because we have to learn to love. We don't know how to love. We have to learn to love. I will just read out mother's words, very words which carry so much power, where she says that every step, like as I have learned how to be a doctor, you have learned how to be a counselor or to be a history teacher, then you have to learn how to love, because it begins from the mud and then you have to go up to the high sky. So, and as I am reading out mother's words, which she said on 15th April 1966, at first, one loves only when one is loved. At first, one loves only when one is loved. Next, one loves spontaneously, but one wants to be loved in return. You love spontaneously, but you are also expecting a love in return. Then, the third rung, then one loves even if one is not loved. Even if you are not loved, then you still love. But one still wants one's love to be accepted. One still wants one's love to be accepted. You want to be appreciated. You want to be acknowledged. And finally, the fourth one loves purely and simply, like a flower blooms for his own. It just blooms for the joy of blooming, not for any other motivation, without any other need or joy than that of loving. So finally, one loves purely and simply, without any other need or joy than that of loving. So that is how beautiful he has said that. And because this possibility mother has opened, so many other things also she has opened. Because if you see, if you are in the outer being, you ultimately you have to accept. If you don't believe in the psychic being, if you don't believe in the inner realms of consciousness, if you are solely in the outer being, then like Michel Foucault, you will have to say that attachment leads to zero. You know, it is very famous word of Michel Foucault, where he explained that attachment leads to zero. Attachment means you have gone to the outside of the outside. In the outer being, it is all right. If you believe in the outer being, then the outer being gets dissolved at death. And why he has said that attachment leads to zero? Because you know that ultimately death comes. So even if you love someone, that person is going to die. So what is the need of attachment? So ultimately it is zero. That is one thing. But then you can travel inwards. If you can travel inwards, then you can go to something else. You can go to the psychic being. You can go to a plenitude. You can go to a superconscious which is full of vibrant possibilities. You see that the whole nuances change. So if you take only a materialistic viewpoint, then you have to accept what Foucault says, that attachment leads to zero, attachment is nothing, attachment leads to the outside of the outside. But if you believe in the psychic being, you can also say that you can go from the inside to the inside, that you can also travel there. And the other thing is, I am frequently asked by people that what is love? Who loves? Who loves? At the end I will tell you, who loves? Who is the person who is the person who loves? Who is the one who loves? I would say that we don't know to love. Actually, we don't know to love. In spite of all our imperfection, in spite of all our defects, the divine gives its grace unconditionally to us. Continuously, it is giving its grace to us. So that is love. The divine alone knows how to love. The divine alone knows how to love. What we know, we can't love people. We end up in possessiveness. No? But the divine, it goes on hunting us and haunting us until we are forced to submit to him. You see, then Sri Aurobindo has given what the divine is saying in Savitri. I will read out. In the heart, the divine is saying this to man, to the human being. My will shall be the meaning of their days. Means it is my will, it is the divine will which will be the meaning of human life. Living for me, by me, in me they shall live. So you have to live by me, for me, by me and in me. In the heart of my creation's mystery, I will enact the drama of thy soul. In the heart of my creation's mystery, I will enact the drama of thy soul. Inscribe the long romance of thee and me. So that is the long romance of the human being and God. The human being is wanting to flee, and the God is trying to chase. Out of love, he is wanting to chase and catch him. So I will enact the drama of thy soul. Inscribe the long romance of thee and me. I will pursue thee across the centuries. God is going to pursue us across the centuries. I will pursue thee across the centuries. Thou shalt be hunted through the world by love. Thou shalt be hunted through the world by love. Naked of ignorance's protecting veil, because you are protected by ignorance. You think that you will escape God. That is actually an ignorance, that you will think that you will escape. So naked of ignorance's protecting veil, when there will be no protection available, and without covert from any radiant, without covert from my radiant gods. So for the gods will also not help. At that time you are totally naked, and at that time you have to surrender, because God will make you will compel you to fall in his pride, will compel you to come to his romance with the Supreme and with the human being. So that is the romance that has been enacted here. So it is God actually who knows to love. And I will tell you, I just remember a small child in the ashram had written once that I have a sweet mother deep in my heart. We are so happy together that we shall never part. And before ending, I will say, why is there so much lack of love and harmony? People ask me, among you people, among you devotees of Sri Aurobindo, why do you go on showing that you don't have any harmony, you don't have any love, you don't have any attachment to the ideal? Forget about attachment to human beings. You have to have an attachment to the ideal. You don't have. Why you do that? Why you have all the imperfections? Sometimes when people say, nowadays when people say that I feel that our what you call our previous people who are previous to us, people who are senior to us in the ashram of our previous generation, they also had conflicts among themselves, but they had one thing in common, which was very positive, that they all loved the mother. Somehow or the other, if we miss that, if we do everything and then we forget to love the mother, or we ignore the mother, then all what we are saying all will become farcical. So I will say that by ending, we must start. If you want to love, know to love, the first thing is, let us love the mother. Let us love the mother unconditionally. You see that one of the important things that India can give to the world is that of motiveless love. Motiveless love. Everywhere love has a motive, but the psychic being has got love which has no motive. It has no motivation to exist. It exists for its own sake. So that is what that we can give to the world, motiveless love. So that is where we excel, and that is where we can concentrate. So I think I will finish here, and I will invite that some of you may add to anything. If not only comment, you can also add something. You can also say something that will be useful, or from your experience that could enrich everybody. It's not like that. Simple. I don't have answers to all questions, but for any of you who have got experiences, that is more important. If you could share some experiences and take this discourse further.
Yes, love for the sake of loving. Yes, does anyone want to ask a question or make a comment or give some feedback? Please step forward now and say something to Dr. Basu.
You can write in the chat box.
Yes, you can, yes.
Anybody can write in the chat box if he wants.
Sure.
I have given two articles in the WhatsApp group, so which contains some of the things that I have said, and the rungs of love are also there, so that you can get back to that. Reference is also there. So the one article is there on the human attachment, and the other especially on Foucault's what Foucault said about attachment, and the other one is on broken love. When love, especially for that's written for counselors. Those who want to do counseling for people who have who are love got broken, how do you approach, how do you do? So there is something there. I didn't repeat it, so that was you can just go over it. It's interesting to see go over that how you can deal with a person who has come to you in counseling with a love that has been broken. No, gay lesbian is not unnatural. Nothing in nature is unnatural. Everything in nature is natural. Whatever happens in nature is natural. What I was wanting to say, you see, everything that happens in nature is natural. There is nothing, you see, that concept of unnatural is a moralistic concept that we have developed. Everything is natural. In nature, everything is natural. Now, what I wanted to say, that what I see and what I feel, because I deal with a lot of people who have existential conflicts with gay people who have got existential conflicts about themselves and about their own philosophy, but I feel very much that the component of masculinity and the component of femininity, and which will culminate in the Purush and Prakriti coming together, but that can only happen at a very high level, at the level of the supermind. But before that happens, with the masculine and the feminine principles, they have to come into harmony with each other. Nature will work out all experiments. Like nature works out experiments with forms of government. Today democracy, tomorrow socialism, day before it was capitalism, another time it was monarchy. Like that nature always experiments with 100 things. So like that, this is also here with our sexual orientation. Nature also experiments with different things until something has come. When we transcend nature, you see, when we transcend nature and we go to the higher nature, then you have actually transcended all these things. Until you are in the lower nature, these things will happen. And when you go to the higher nature, which is beyond the ego, then you will be above all these things.
Yeah. There's a question from Minarani. So I'll read it out to you, Dr. Basu. What happens when someone chooses not to create a family or have children based on their spiritual journey? And then another question.
What happens when someone chooses not to create a family?
What happens when someone chooses not to create a family?
No, it's what no, that I will tell you. That will tell you.
And
there is nothing.
Is having a kid against the teachings and yoga of Sri Aurobindo.
See, there is no hard and fast rule. It depends upon the individual and it depends upon case to case. There are some people who have to lead a very strict disciplinarian life, which is for the others. They have to sacrifice their other instincts and all. But it's not a general rule that is to be followed by everybody. If you want to, you see, there are many ways. First is that if you want to have a spiritual perspective in your family life, then you can have children being born with a lot of consciousness that has been invoked in their birth. Invoked, you see, you have to have consciousness, that you can work with your consciousness to bring a very beautiful child or to invoke a very great soul, that you can do. So that, as mother has talked about the ideal child and ideal parent, where when I tell that parents, people, youngsters, I feel very much that, because I feel that youngsters, when they are still in their colleges, they should be taught that when they are going to have a family, they can think about how to have a very what you call noble soul born in their family, and for that one has to work. And what can one through consciousness, one can work there. I have an article in NAMAH, I will just give it, where I have written about it. So it's not that having a kid is against the teachings of yoga of Sri Aurobindo. It is not that. You can actually have a very what you call, invoke the mother's blessings, Sri Aurobindo's blessings, to have a beautiful kid who will carry on the yoga. So you can do that. But for some people it is necessary again to remain without marriage. Again, for some other people who want to have a family, but not the family in the conventional sense, what mother has said, that the future family will be a family based on soul kinship, soul comradeship. You see, that the family is going to change. It is not that we will have the old type of family. A new type of family will come. That family will be based on soul kinship, where you have people who are related to you at the level of the soul, might be they are scattered in time and space. So all possibilities are there. Every possibility is there. So it also depends upon the individual choice or aspiration. If you have an aspiration that I want to have a very nice child whom I will offer to the mother, who will do mother's yoga, and I want to bring that, so you can do that. People do that. I have known the people who have, throughout their life, they have always prayed that they want to offer something to the mother. We offer money. Some people offer what they have, but some people also want to offer their children who have been specially invoked so as to serve the mother. So like that, there are all possibilities. You can experiment with everything.
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, 6:30 now. So we'll call a halt to the session. Really fascinating session, Dr. Basu. Thank you so much. Really very, very interesting indeed. Tomorrow evening, the last session will take place, 5:30, and will be Dr. Deborah Harta Sahani. I recommend you all attend this last session. So, until then, wish you a very pleasant evening, We can reflect on Dr. Basu's words in great depth this evening and benefit from his wisdom. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. And,
thank you, Soumitra.
See you tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.